All right, GPT-4 has now launched. There is an API that's available to developers. I've applied to be on the waitlist for that, so we'll see how that works. But in the video for that, they showcased a particular use case of Khan Academy for creating an AI-based tutor for the students. I wanted to see how close we can get to what they're doing just using GPT 3.5 API and some of the tools that are available for taking a document of specific information you want to use as the context and to get the AI to process that. So this is the new version of the prototype. We're calling it AI Tutor Agent. It is non-iterative because unlike ChatGPT, the API is not technically chat-based in that each prompt is its own body of information, and it doesn't know what you said in the previous prompt or what it said in the previous prompt. There are ways of collecting that locally, bundling your next prompt with the previous prompt and a summary of the response. We can build that in, but for now, that's not really what I'm testing out, so I'm not putting that in there. So I have, for the context here, I've just copied and pasted information from LearnHQ on what Monash feels is a good way to, or good strategies to engage in writing for classes. Assessments, a variety of resources. This is pure text. I haven't done anything to it except to add the occasional separator so that, again, the model will create embeddings for that, convert it to vectors of numbers that represent the ideas encapsulated in that section, so that when the student creates a question, converts that into numbers and then checks that those numbers correspond with one another, finds the appropriate section, and then creates an answer based on that section. Okay, so that is the context here, and then we have the prompt, the persona for the GPT agent, which is going to narrow down that large volume of training data that it has to only those specific bits that are related to what you want it to do. Okay, so you are a proactive Monash University student academic success advisor who wants to help students successfully complete their assessments. Give advice to the student based on the information contained in the context. End each reply with a question to better understand the student's issue. Okay, the context again is the text that we've input from the LearnHQ model. Now, the kind of computer science literature on the ChatGPT 3 and 3.5 models is that if you give them an example of a good question and response pairing, that it will give you a much higher quality response as a result. So we've created spaces here for you to give a good example of a question and an answer. So let's say good question is, I have a lot to say, but how can I organize my thoughts? And a good response, that for the purposes of this test, I'm pulling from the University of Louisville Writing Center. I just did a quick Google search for an example of a Q&A sort of response. So they give some advice that roughly corresponds to what we have in our LearnHQ. But that's kind of the framing, the phrasing, the kinds of words, the tone are all going to help the agent get an idea of how to proceed, how to shape and craft its response. So I've advised it. I want it to end each reply with a question to better understand the student's issue. So in this example, they're saying, I have a lot to say. How can I organize my thoughts? It gives advice like use a draft. Have you tried creating, have you tried free writing to create a first draft? Okay, so that lets it know that as we instructed, it should end each reply with a question that furthers the conversation. Now, this can't do the conversation, as I noted earlier, because I haven't built in that memory, the long-term memory you need in order for it to have a conversation. It only knows what you're asking and what it said. In the future, again, we can build relatively easily that functionality, but we're going to put this in, have it run the embeddings, convert the context into numbers again, and once it's done that, we can ask it some questions. Okay, I have written a draft, but it is too short. How can I expand it to meet the requirements for the assessment? So it's taking that question, converting it to numbers, finding the sections that are most relevant, and then sending that question to the ChatGPT. I'm sure there's better ways to optimize this so it doesn't take quite so long, but we will, hopefully it will give us an answer soon. Okay, great question. That's a nice upbeat attitude. Expanding draft can be challenging, but it is achievable with some focus and determination, right? Here are a few tips to help you start your draft. 1, do more research because you need to include more information. Consider adding additional research, facts, figures, examples. Add more detail. Go back and read through the draft areas where you could add more detail. Think about what your reader may not know on the topic. Okay, good. Develop your ideas. Consider the points. Okay, so these are all good advice. Add supporting evidence. Kind of already said that. Use examples. Good. Consider taking help from your tutor, lecturer, or librarians to ensure that you're on the right track. So, great. Have you read through your draft and identified any areas that could benefit from more detail? Okay, so it's done what we've asked. Ends with a question that continues the conversation. Again, it can't continue the conversation. The next question I ask, it's going to forget what it just said. But that's for version 1.4, 0.4. Okay, so let's ask another question. How many citations do I need to include? Okay, there's no set number of citations you need to include in your writing. The number of citations depends on the requirements of your assignment as well as the extent to which you're drawing on outside research sources to support your own ideas and arguments. The key is to ensure that you're using credible, reliable sources. Do you need help finding citing sources for your assignments? Okay, yeah, great advice. Ideally, there's no set number, but you should talk to your lecturer. Do you need help in any of that process? So it's doing what we want. One issue here is we're taking static information that's presented in a web page, and it's not created to serve this. So the more customized in this kind of question and answer kind of format, the easier it is going to be for really fine-tuned responses. And additionally, because the source data for that is, logs of actual interactions, to the degree that we have those logs of, common student questions and the kinds of responses we give them, you plug that into this as source data. It's, potentially already in a sort of data frame or a table super easy for the computer to understand and apply, and then it becomes extremely powerful. So I don't know if we have those logs, but if we do, that is going to really make this a lot more powerful. It isn't going to require a lot of additional work to set it up. Obviously, you have to test it quite substantially. This is just me throwing words together for the prompt. You can systematically make hundreds of permutations of this prompt that you can feed into the API to test them out, to find out which version of the prompt gets you the best, most accurate responses. And then you make that adjustment, and it will be a much better outcome. So this is just a prototype, and I am approaching the limit of my API free access. So hopefully I get access to the additional one, so I can keep playing with this. But curious to know if this is kind of the direction that we're looking to take, and specifically if we have those logs on the previous interactions. So let me know what you think.